Hi YouTube, my name is Cute and in this tutorial we're going to start making our first game. Its genre is going to be shoot 'em up and you should probably know it by the game called Space Invaders. And we're going to try to create something similar to that. Alright, let's open our GMS project and the first thing that we're gonna have to do is to press with our right mouse button on the folder called Sprite and create a new sprite. Sprite is basically a picture that we are going to use for our objects. We call it spr underscore ship and we add this spr underscore just so that it's easier to divide the things into their subdivisions, okay? For example, for the objects we're going to use obj underscore, for scripts scr underscore, and so on. Now we press edit sprite, file, and new. We create a sprite with width and height of 32 pixels and go into it. Now we choose Align tool because I want to make it possible for everyone and we're going to use some simple graphics. And that's basically the ship that we're going to use, that's all. Now we close it. And I want you to press center in this origin tab. We're going to talk about it later, let's just not overflood your brains with extra information. Just press center on this sprite. The next step is to press right mouse button on our objects folder and to create a new object. We're going to call it obj underscore ship and we should assign a sprite that we've just created, sprite ship, so that we have this image on our ship. Now let's talk a little bit about what we can see here. The event is basically the circumstance under which something from the tab actions will happen. For example, let's add in an event which is called mouse left button. It means that when we press with our left mouse button on our object, something will happen. This something is going to be in our actions tab. Here we can see different squares with, for example, set horizontal speed, and it's a constructor. It's a little bit easier than code, but seriously, I've wasted like 2 months on that and I don't recommend you to ever use it. It's much better to start from code because this will not get you anywhere. Yeah, it's probably good for some small tiny prototypes. If you want to see what's GameMaker all about, you might use it, but it will not help you if you want to do something great. And in general, it's much better to start with coding. So we go to control and drag inside this small execute code square. That is our place for making the most awesome thing about GameMaker, the coding. So what do we have at the moment? We have this event which basically is a circumstance. When we press the left button on our object, on our ship, this action will happen, this piece of code that we dragged inside of the actions tab. Now you don't need to follow me, but I will write game end and add the brackets. Next step, now you should follow, we must create a room. A room is basically a place where everything in our game is going to happen. Now we don't need this large of a room, we're going to start with something small and we'll give it the width of 384 pixels and the height of 512. And now let's call it rm underscore 1 and set a speed to 60. Speed is how many frames per second can this room handle. In general, 60 frames per second gives a much more smooth of an experience, and I recommend you to always use 60. I mean, it's better for almost all of the occasions. Now let's give our room a black background. We go to tab called backgrounds and choose a black color. And the most important thing, we go to the objects tab, choose object ship and put it inside of our room. Now we close the tab and press the play button, or I believe it's F5 if you want to use a shortcut. Now we wait for our game to render and we'll see what we have at the moment. Now we are inside of our game, and if I press anywhere with my left mouse button, nothing happens. But if I press with the left mouse button on our ship, the game ends. That's what we have created at the moment. But we don't need this event, I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to show you another event. We want to handle movement. I want to tell you about movement in this video. So we will add an event which is called keyboard left and keyboard right. Don't choose key press because it means that you can't hold the button and you will have to constantly hit it in order to move left or right. In our left event, we drag the execute code and write down x minus equals 2. It's basically the same as if we wrote x equals x minus 2. What it does is it subtracts 2 from our current x position. So as you know, there are different x's in our world, and x is going to be the horizontal one and y is the vertical. And we subtract 2 from our current x position and we're going to move left. In the right one, we add 2 and we're going to move to the right. We can write a comment, move to the right. It's not going to affect our game, it's just going to help ourselves to remember what we wanted to do. Move to the left. Now when we run our game, we will see what will happen. Now we are back to our room, and when I hold the left arrow key on my keyboard, I move to the left, and when I press the right one, I move to the right. However, at the moment we can go behind the borders of our room, but we will fix it in the next episode. At the moment I want to show you a little bit of more interesting way to handle our movement. Let's add an event that is called step. Step event is basically something that happens every single frame. So we have our room speed set to 60 frames per second. So basically step event is going to occur 60 times per second. We drag in our execute code and write basically the same that we have here already. If keyboard check vk left brackets and x minus equals 2. And basically is the same as our event. Here we have, if we press left, then we execute the code which says x minus equals 2. Here we just write it with the words. If we press left arrow, then we're going to move to the left. In order to know all of those built-in GameMaker functions, you should press the middle mouse button on the word, or you may also press F1 in order to open this help tab. Now here's what we have. Keyboard check is something that checks if you hold a special key. And if we write keyboard, you're going to see that there are keyboard controls. And that's basically everything that you can write down. For example, Alt A is going to check if you hold a letter on your keyboard. I personally recommend you to read or to always try to find something using this manual because it's extremely useful, and that's probably the best way to learn the code and to find what you need at this very moment. I constantly use it, even though I've been using GameMaker for like 2 years, I believe. And now we write down if keyboard underscore check vk right brackets x plus equals 2. Now we delete our events, extra events left and right, and run our game again. Now, as you may see, we can do the same thing. If I press the left button, I move to the left. If I press the right one, I move to the right. I want to greet you with the first lines of code. You are awesome, and if you've enjoyed the video, if you've watched it up to this point, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell, my friends.